All right. Okay.
It's official, Dr. Gaynor. It's
Okay,
official.
that's it.
The marker has been marked. Okay. All right. All right. So, welcome to Good Enough to Fail. I am your host, Sabrina, and this is
LC. Hey, y'all.
And with us today, we have Dr. Brianna Gaynor, who is a superwoman in my eyes. I know I tell her she can do all type of stuff, and she'd be like, "Girl, what?" But again, I just love your demeanor. I love, your realness. I love that you're a Black woman. Woo, woo. And I love that that you flex your superpowers. So we are going to jump right into a couple of things today. And this is your honest reaction.
Okay.
Sheesh. Okay. So my first question is, or really not a question. We're gonna, just so you know, just so the audience knows, we're gonna circle around and let Dr. Gaynor kind of give her own introduction. But I just want to kick it off. All right.
Okay.
Baptism by fire over here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Would you rather be seen or heard? Now, let me just asterisk this by saying,
okay,
we know both are important.
Yes.
Put one before the other, and why?
Heard before seen. Because I think that sometimes people can see you but not really hear you or understand what your point that you're trying to get and come across. And I think for me, in my business, in my relationships, being heard and hearing people is just so important to connection that I think that's way more important than the exterior, because that's not always the true person. So yeah.
Okay. Would you rather be seen or heard?
Oh, so me now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I agree with Dr. Gaynor. I would absolutely rather be heard than seen, just because I feel like sometimes, number one, if I have a point that I'm trying to convey to her point, it can get lost in being seen. Like, you can be consumed with like the aesthetics, like, oh, what she got on? Why she look like that? Why her hair like that? And that may not be the focal point of the message. So for me, hearing my message is more important than anything. And then you can see me later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What about you, Sabrina? What about you?
Nobody asked me the question. No, I'm playing. Okay. No, I concur with the two of you. I would rather be heard than seen first. For the very same reasons, because y'all know I got a loud mouth, and my thing is, I know not you, girl, what? But it's one of those things where I'm like, I'd rather make sure you hear my message. I don't ever have to be seen. I could be, what's the Wizard of Oz? Remember the man behind the curtain? The whiz behind the curtain. Like, I could be that all day. Like, you ain't got to never see my face or anything like that. And I know a lot. I have met some people who have answered to the other, which they'd rather be seen. And I'm like, for various reasons. And I'm like,
and that's an opinion,
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. But it always shocks me just because it's different from mine.
Yeah. It's always like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're doing this visual podcast. You know what I'm saying? So the irony of that situation.
Well, okay. So now I'm going to take a moment.
All right.
Dr. Gaynor, tell the people who you are and how wonderful you are.
So great. Amazing I am. Okay.
That girl magic.
I'm a clinical psychologist in Johns Creek, Georgia. I have been licensed, for like 11 years or so. I have a practice called Peace of Mind Psychological Services. And we do therapy and psychological evaluations for children, teens, adults. And I have a wonderful staff that keeps it going. So and I am really working towards doing more speaking engagements. I love inspiring people, encouraging people about mental health, about the importance of mental health in minority populations specifically. And just about resilience, the fact that we can learn how to develop that skill. It's not just something you're born with. So how do we grow and achieve and be our best selves? That's really my message and my goal, just to inspire people and help them. So yeah, I want you to hear me. You don't never have
Amen. Look.
There you go. If you hear me and it resonates, then I did what I was supposed to do. So
all right.
Now when you, because I know you have a knack for speaking to the faith-based community, and we about to ask a question. So just yeah, we about to ask a question.
She about to ask a question because it ain't me.
You like, not me. Okay.
So when you speak to the faith-based community, is that something that you I know you take it seriously, but how do you approach it? Because, right, like we all know that different groups of people can be very sensitive when you kind of pull their coattails about something, right? And so how do you approach
that?
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a huge difference, because I really feel like being real and being authentic and showing that you're human is what really counts to people. I know the sermons that I connect with best are people who are just honest about the struggles that they've been through, honest about the hardships, honest about who they are and that they're not perfect. So I think I just come from that. I think just trying to be something that you're not, really, people don't connect with that anyway. So just being authentic. I think that there's these shirts that say, I can't even think of the way it goes, but it's like, you know, I believe in God, but I'm a little hood too. Like, we have all those parts.
Right.
So I'm not trying to front like I'm perfect, but that's also important area of my life is my faith. So it's about the balance and how it all comes together to be one person. And I think that as I've grown in my faith, I've become a lot more comfortable with all the pieces and not just trying to be one particular thing, or trying not to listen to the music that I like to listen to, or I'll probably cuss a little more than I should. You know, all those things that just make you human. I think so. Being human and still coming from a place of faith and being honest about the struggles that comes with, I think is really what's going to connect people. And if it doesn't, then those aren't the people who need to hear me in the first place. So,
so you're from that Try Jesus, Not Me ministry.
He's still working on me, child. Still working on me.
So I have a question. So like piggybacking like off of like the faith-based community, and especially as it relates to like mental health, like how do you, because you know amongst our people,
yes ma'am,
our people,
yes,
we have this whole, I don't need therapy, I'm gonna just pray it away.
Yes.
So like how do you, I guess like in your practice and in dealing with people, like if that comes like I guess across your path, like how do you, like what do you have to say to like to speak to that?
I think that I try to equate it probably to medical issues. So if you have a medical issue and we talk about healing, yes, sometimes it can happen instantaneously. That is absolutely possible. But a lot of times we go through treatment. We go to doctors and then we're healed and we're blessed, but we did all those things and all those people we believe were put in our path that God placed as a part of the healing. It's the same thing with mental health. That's why there are counselors and psychiatrists sometimes. All of that is to help lead to the healing. So it's no different. So if you would go to the doctor when you don't feel well and you have cancer and you'll go through the treatment and believe that God will get you through, why can't it be the same for mental health? So I think that's, and the other thing that's really interesting that I think used to frustrate me, but I get it. I think a lot of people who are very against mental health will be like, oh, well, but you look like me, so I want to talk to you. And I used to be like, but what does that have to do with anything? But you want to see people who look like you, who can understand and relate to that too. So I also feel a responsibility as a Black woman that I can probably say a little bit more to that than someone who maybe isn't Black to another Black person, and maybe you'll listen to me a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, but it's the same thing, you know, when you have tax issues, are you going to do it yourself or are you going to go to the accountant? Probably wouldn't be smart if you don't have the the expertise to do your own taxes. So I mean, it's the same vein. We go to people for help with everything else but mental health. Like, what's the difference? And the truth is, we can all look at people in our family who have not dealt with their mental health and it has not gone well.
Child.
So,
man.
It's like, okay, we can do that, but how does that work out? It leads to all these other issues when you don't address your feelings. So there might be a better way to do this.
Yeah, and to your point, like I've been on my therapy journey for a while now. I actually found my therapist on therapyforblackgirls.com. And prior to my current therapist, I had a white therapist who I love. Don't get me wrong. Like she and I aligned on a lot of things like yoga and mindfulness and all of that kind of stuff. But when it got to like the real nitty gritty to where I needed to get over like what I felt like was that hump in my life, it did absolutely help having someone that looked like me, someone who talked like me, because I can call my therapist and be like, girl, look, let me tell you what happened.
You talk to her different.
Yeah, she'll be like, who's child? You know what I mean? And she can relate to things that, you know, honestly, like where I feel like I was open with my first therapist, but it's only so it was only so open that I could be with her, considering that we don't come from the same ethnic background. We don't share those same like common experiences and things like that as being Black women.
Yeah, and I think it's so different, and there's so many aspects that are important for people, right? So absolutely, you need to connect. And I love that you said your therapy journey, because what I find too is sometimes people will give up if the first person doesn't work out. And the truth is, just like anything else, sometimes you have to try a few things before you find the right fit. But once you find the right fit, it works very well.
Like I tell all my friends, I was like, me and my therapist, I'm in a more of a committed relationship with her than I have been with anybody that I've dated. Like, girl,
and I have a therapist
we are together for the long run.
Exactly. And I have a therapist who's actually white, and I think because she's very faith-based, which works very well for me, but it took me a while to open up just about things that I felt like she might judge me on. And now I realize she doesn't. So I'm more comfortable, but I went for one reason, and now we talk about other stuff. I'm like, I didn't want to talk about that.
Wait. So what I hear you saying is the therapist has a therapist.
Absolutely.
The therapist should have a therapist.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're human first. I have had all the training, but when life happens, you're human first. And so my reaction, the things that I say to people, there are times when I've been, and I don't do therapy as much anymore, but I remember when I was doing therapy more consistently, I would say things that sounded so good, and I'd be thinking, girl, you don't do none of that. Sounds good. But I am not taking my own advice, you know? Right. So I'm human before I'm anything. And my therapist is life. I'm just like, she points out all the things that I didn't know was my issue. I'm like, but it's them. But it has helped me so much with things that I wouldn't have even realized I needed to work on. So I think it's invaluable.
You know, I love that you just said that. I wrote it down too, so I'm gonna quote you later.
Okay, what did I say?
I love that you said like I'm human before anything. So not even in this mental health space, but just in life in general. Sometimes I feel like, especially as Black women, like the weight of the world has always been on our shoulders. Yes. Like we were brought over to this country to be the workhorses here, so we still operate in that space. And I think sometimes we forget when we have a bad day, when we're not feeling our best, when we're, you know what I'm saying, when we're just not feeling like we can go out and conquer everything. Like we forget, like we're human before anything. Like, let's not forget that. And I feel like sometimes we need to extend ourselves a little bit of grace. We need to be a friend to ourselves. Shout out to my first therapist, be a friend to yourself. It's the first lesson I ever got in therapy. Be a friend to yourself. But we are human before we are anything else. And sometimes I think we forget that. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. I just would quick story, right? Like it took me till I was like in my early 30s to realize that we are human first. Because, and I'm not going to say I didn't grow up in the church house where they browbeat you with certain ideologies and stuff like that, but it was definitely instilled, right? Yeah. So in my mind, I was following those things like to the letter, as far as, you know, as much as possible, you know, that I could and all the rest of that. And then things happened. Right, and then life happened, and life kept smacking me, and I was like, okay, I'm supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to, you know, remain this way. I'm supposed to pray it, and not, you know, all the rest of this, and I'm supposed to just, you know, do the things that the church house told me to do. Yeah. And at some point, I was just like, F it, I'm just gonna be human. Like, I'm not even gonna try to be Christian no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not even gonna try to like do the part or play the role. I ain't gonna say play the role because I was literally living it, but you know what I mean? Like, just, I was like, no, it's kind of, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't get to get back. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm ready to get back. and I'm about to get back. So, but then I met Dr. Gaynor.
She out here getting lives together out here.
And this is the funny part. I had been to it like 2 therapists who kept just trying to push pills at me, you know, like not discuss what was really happening with me or going on with me. Just, you want some pills? You want some pills? You need some pills? I give you some pills. I was like, I don't want no pills. Like, I just want to talk about like the stuff that's on my chest that I feel like I'm not being heard.
Feelings?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then so finally, and I still say it wasn't nothing but God. I went to was the Boss Up Women's Conference, and this woman walked into the room like, oh, and started talking. I was like, I felt like I was in church. You know, I ain't never been one of the people in church that, you know, throw hands, do all that. I was in there like, child.
That's black church. Black church. I can't with black church.
I literally went up to her at the end of it and said, can I come lay on your couch? She said, I'm in Atlanta because the conference is in Chicago. She said, I'm in Atlanta. I said, I can fly. It's okay. But I feel like that was an awakening for me. Like that at that moment, that day was like, oh my God. Like, and then to like we continue to say, to see somebody in my skin tone, right? And my, you know, this woman who is like making perfect sense, like, and who understands like the culture. It was definitely a game changer, which is why in my mind, you will always and forever be Superwoman. Cause I'm like, all the people in the room, when I tell you that lady, I don't even know the lady that was sitting next to me, child, she was kicking me under the table. She was like, girl, I'm like, this is woo. But anyway, I went and I really want to find video of that particular conference. But I mean, I'm just saying, y'all, we're gonna make sure we drop your information for speaking engagements.
Yes, ma'am.
in the description here. But I just want to pivot really quick because speaking of faith, speaking of all that, we all know there's a certain couple of situations going on. We're not going to mention exactly what those situations are in the media at this present moment. However, there are quite a few faith-based leaders, right, that are cutting up right now.
I'm going to go ahead and go ahead.
But no, and I'm saying that not because of the artist, but because of the whole, just a religion itself, right? Just because, and somebody said something to me the other day that really hit home to me, and they was like, you know, everybody talks about, well, I understand it because I'm Kojic. I understand it because I'm apostolic. I understand it because I'm, you know, this, right? Insert the denomination here. And it's like, what people tend to forget is denominations is literally division. I was like,
that face, Elsie.
You know, I be trying to keep it together.
I said, oh shoot, like I never even thought of it that way. You know what I mean? Like it's literally division. Like, so you're saying because these different factions, right, separated, did these, you know, made up their rules, right? And all the rest of that, you start following this. Now mine is wrong because you think yours is right, and all the rest of that, when we're really supposed to be all under the same book, right?
Correct.
So they say.
Yeah. And so I just, and in that vein, I just think with you, Dr. Gaynor, how have you brought your faith into your practice, if you have at all?
I think I learned a long time ago. Let me go back. There was a time when I really got serious about my faith. I was like this. I was telling everybody what they needed to do. I remember one time I was telling my mother something, and she was like, girl, I knew Jesus way before you was like, I was like, oh, okay. So I think that a lot of times it's necessary to have that time so that you can get focused, but then you have to become human again, right? So I kind of became human again. And I realized that I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. I remember with different friends, and I felt like I had to bring them in and, you know, tell them, look, I'm the assistant Christ and all of that. And, and I come back now and I'm so irritated with myself. Like, no, that was way too much. Not that you shouldn't talk to people and correct them, but I think what I've realized is I've taken the pressure off. So I felt like the need to say certain things. Maybe I need to change your mind. I need to convince you. And it's funny because I was just having a thought about an hour ago that it's not my job to convince you of anything. It's just my job to shine my light. And so with that being said, faith will come in if the client brings it up. I'm not going to force it on you. But what I've come to realize is when you're a person of faith, it's just who you are. So even if people don't believe in God, people have a feeling of peace. People feel like you listen to them. People feel understood. All of that is God. And so I think it's just about being who you are and taking the pressure off. Because what I also had to realize is I am not the Holy Spirit. I'm trying to do too much.
Right.
You're like, and let God be God. Because I'm not even, me trying to do that job, I'm not even closely good at it. So I think it's just about being yourself, and who you are. If you are connected with God is a reflection, and that's it. So taking the pressure off, I think, has been really good for me, because when we had more people in the office, people would say things like, oh, they feel peace. Oh, they feel that they were helped. All those things made me go, okay, if I can say encouraging words, all of that. Exactly. So it's just who I am. And I think realizing that has helped take the pressure off of me feeling like I needed to say the right things. Like I was praying with my uncle who's sick and my cousin. And I remember thinking, okay, what's the let me try to say this wonderful prayer. Couldn't think of nothing. But I knew that was very purposeful, because I needed for that moment to pray like a regular person and know that you can just say regular words, and that was all it was. So just taking the pressure off, I think, is really important. And that's what I do. Now, if you bring up God, we can talk about it, but it's still there, whether we mention it or not. So
look at,
and it's that's like a great reference, because like in my therapy journey, that's one of the things that I've learned to do, like outside of religion. I don't consider myself like a religious person. Like I'm more spiritual. Like I have friends.
What's the difference?
I don't practice any one religion. Like I feel like there's beauty in all of the religions. Like
Buddhists right behind
exactly.
us, so.
Perfect example. One of my really, really good friends is he practices Sikhism, so he's a Sikh. And one of their foundational beliefs is that whatever you do, be good at it. So if you're going to be a Christian, be a good Christian. If you're going to be a Muslim, be a good Muslim. If you're going to be a Hindu, be a good, you know what I'm saying? So on and so forth. And so just be good and not do it well, but be good to the core of who you are. And so that's one of the things that I kind of live by. But before Sabrina got on me about what's the difference between, because that is a conversation that I have with lots of people. It's like, well, what's the difference between being religious and spiritual? Like, I feel like religion gives you like a set of rules that you need to operate by. And it's like a really strict and kind of rigid way of practicing the same thing that we're all, I guess, believing in. Like, I believe in God, but I don't follow any particular guidelines in the way that I connect with God is kind of what I mean by that. But taking the pressure off is what you have mentioned as far as religion. That applies to so many different areas of my life personally. And that was one of the things that I had to work on in therapy, is like, this is supposed to be like this. I'm supposed to do this, and I'm supposed to say this, and I'm supposed to do this, and da 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 da. And my current therapist was like, well, what is supposed to? Elsie, what does that even mean? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. And then that's like, for me, taking that pressure off of what supposed to is, it like completely set me free from any expectations or any, like, you know what I mean? Any outside expectations that I have put on myself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which brings me back to something you said earlier about the culture, right? Resiliency and that type of thing, right? You said it's taught, correct?
I'm saying it can be developed. I think
it can be developed.
The ability to kind of go through hard things and overcome. Well, it depends on a lot of different things, but it can be developed through your social relationships, through building self-esteem, through having goals in terms of education and advancement, through your spirituality and feeling like there's a higher meaning to life, what your values are, how you see life, and your experiences, and just being willing to push through. And also the experiences that you have how you see people dealing with things too. And sometimes that pushes you to do the same thing or do the complete opposite. But there are ways that we can kind of grow in those areas. That's encouraging to me, because I've had situations in my family where I've seen that some of us, we've kind of had some similar situations, and some of us are able to kind of push through and overall have good lives and be productive and all of that. And some of us aren't. And my question was, what is that thing? But the other part of it is, if it can be developed, it's also up to that person to be willing to do the things that it takes. And sometimes willing to do the things that it takes means therapy, means, okay, willing to look at the things that maybe I'm not doing right, or the things I'm struggling in, or the areas that I keep bumping my head up against. And the problem is that, and I only been a Black person, so I can only talk for us. Right. we can sometimes tend to just keep doing the same things, getting the same results, and not being willing to push past that for fear of whatever. But, you know, I often tell people, like, we don't want to make changes or do something different, but what do you have to lose? I mean, we already know what this feels like. It doesn't feel good. Facts. And it can either not get better, or it could get better. Yeah. So if we're already comfortable with where we're at, what do you have to lose to try something different? That could be the key to the next step, you know? And you better, but sometimes we need help. Exactly. There is nothing wrong with asking for help, but I think a lot of times we've learned that that's not a good thing. I grew up with a mom who was sick for a long time, continued to work, had trouble walking, but she gonna catch the train, not ask anybody for help, keep going, pushing through. And so I realized in my adult life, I don't ask people for help. Like, I have to, like, I remember working with my therapist on, who would you ask for help? Like, I think about, if I needed money, or I don't know who I would ask. I don't know and not that I don't have people to ask, but I'm just not wired that way. I just feel like I just got to figure it out. And that's not helpful. That's not really super healthy, you know? So all those things we kind of have to unlearn that make you strong, but does it really? Because then my other question, I want to ask you guys a question. Yeah. Strength. Like, what's your definition of strength? What makes someone strong?
I'm gonna let you leave.
No, I'm gonna let you go first. I'm gonna let you go first. What's your definition? I need to hear.
And so it's very coincidental that this is like what we're talking about right now, because this is actually something that I am currently working on in therapy right now, is asking for help when I need it. Because I was always the person that people leaned on. Like, I'm the go-to person for a lot of situations. Like, when people are going through things, they call LC. Like, LC, what? I need your advice on this, or I need your help with this. So when I was faced with, hey, like, I need help, but who do, and again, I got Sabrina. I could easily pick up the phone. Sabrina's been here been there for me through so many things throughout my entire life. And I have so many people. I have an amazing support system, but to me, I was almost like ashamed of like I don't have it together. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so dealing with the shame of being the person that was, I guess, in need, that was something that was really difficult for me to deal with. But I guess to answer your question, how I identify strength is like courage under fire. Like doing the hard thing even when you don't want to. But it's necessary. And still pushing through and just coming out on the other side of it. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple for me. It's just courage under fire is kind of how I can simplify it.
I'm sitting here thinking, because I'm like, okay, the question is,
how do you strength? How do you define strength? Like,
how do I define strength?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to answer that. Like, that's the honest to God truth right now. I'm like, wow. I'm saying, like, how do I define strength? Because it's all like all the things that other people would identify, or most people, right, would identify as having strength, right? Persevering and, that type of thing. I don't think it's necessarily a strength. And so when you say courage under fire, it's like you're put in that situation and you have to do something. You say, okay, you got to do something. That doesn't to me equals strength. That's more of a willful, or what's the word? I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of the word for that. But willful is the closest thing I think of right now. But as far as strength is concerned, I'm like, I don't know. Now, see, now you're gonna have me. Okay, I need people to tell us what.
I think it's up to each person to define what that looks like for themselves. I don't think that there's like one like arbitrary answer for what is strength. To me,
right, and that's okay. But I'm just saying, for me, I'm literally like, what is strength? Like, I mean, obviously, I can think about it in the physical sense of like, oh, I'm gonna write that down. Please do. But I'm just thinking like. Because you know what? And, okay, moment of transparency here. I think I have such a block with it because my whole life, two phrases that I can't stand. Okay, one is let's keep the peace. Let's do X, Y, and Z to keep the peace. Let's not say this to keep the peace. And then the other is you're so strong. You're so strong. Oh, I don't know how you had the strength to get through that, or you know what I'm saying. So that phrase, right? The strength to get through, and those things to me don't go together. What do you mean strength to get through? Like I feel like they're very separate for me. I'm like strength and through, the strength to get through. Like that whole thing is like
piggybacking off of what you're saying. I do feel like society and / social media, because that's become synonymous with society, unfortunately. I do feel like the definition of strength that is forced upon us, I don't think that necessarily is how I would define strength. Like a lot of people feel like grinning and bearing it and not expressing your feelings. I actually think that in order to be vulnerable and to tell the guy that you're dating first, like, hey, I love you, and I don't care if you don't say it back. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that requires. We're not gonna talk about that right now. That's not what we're here for today. But I'm just saying.
I got questions that need answers.
That's not this topic right now. But you know what I'm saying? But that takes a lot of courage to do that, and to put yourself out there in a situation to make yourself vulnerable. And knowing like, hey, I could potentially be hurt, but I'm gonna do it anyway. You know what I mean? Or even like amongst like sometimes with our parents and the way that we were raised. And I'm speaking on my people, but sometimes like even challenging like things that we've outgrown or unlearned as we've developed in our adulthood into our parents, and saying like, hey, I know that this is the way that you've always said this to me, but hey, that hurts my feelings. And sometimes that takes an act of courage or strength to stand up to your parent or grandparent or whomever is in your life that are, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like expressing our feelings in a way.
More courage though than it is strength? Because I think courage is not the same strength.
But my definition of strength is courage under fire.
Yeah.
I know, but okay.
But I mean, it's all I think my point is, what I've thought is, I do think it kind of should be individual. I think for me, as I'm thinking about it, I think I changed my answer. I think the idea of strength that I've always been told is you're assertive, you stand up for yourself, you don't let people walk all over you, you keep going, all those things. And I was a very sensitive child. I'm still sensitive, but I cried all the time. I don't cry all the time anymore. And the message that I always got was, you need to pick your feelings up off the ground. Or I had someone tell me, you need to be more like this person because they're mean. Like, that's not, no, I'm Brianna. So for me, the fact that I could say as an adult, but I'm not that person, I'm Brianna. And realizing that my sensitivity is my superpower. It's the thing that helps me to be great at what I do. And it's not a weakness, it's a strength. So being able to figure that out for me. And then I think too, being able to go through things and being not only just able, but willing to, because I've also known people, like one of the things you said, Sabrina, is you kind of have to, but some people don't have that have to. They just collapse and they can't deal with difficult things. And I think for me, I didn't understand it. I'm like, I mean, but that's just what you do, right? But that's not what everybody does. Everybody doesn't have that ability to just kind of push through. some people literally give up. And although we think that there are things that we just have to do, everybody just doesn't function like that. So to be able to deal with all the things that you've been able to deal with life, I know I've gone through things I never thought I would be able to deal with. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, you really are strong. And that's not the message that I got, because I was made to feel that something about being sensitive was a bad thing, that my emotions were detrimental.
Do you think that that's something that's like commonly, I guess, put on us as being Black women, that our sensitivity is a bad thing?
Yeah, suck it up. So emotional.
Like you, I was a very sensitive child. I cried all the time. I'm be honest. I still be crying. So I
cried too, but just some of the things I'm crying, you know, in high school. But I don't want to talk about him, but it was just crazy. Like, why are you crying all the time?
No, you must
everybody
talk about
know
it.
Who you crying about. So it's just
you must tell us about the situation.
But I'm sensitive, and not even just like in sadness. Like, I'm sensitive on all things. Like, I was watching an episode of Little Big Shots with Steve Harvey and the little kids, and one of the kids wanted to be like an American Ninja Warrior, and he got through the obstacle course, and everybody cheered for him, and I just burst into tears. I'm like, oh my God, why am I crying right now? But I'm like overwhelmed with emotion, but like literally expressing it through my tears. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was watching 90 Day Fiance yesterday, and the guys getting married, and the father-in-law, they started crying. I'm crying. My friend,
I'm not crying. You are.
It's my allergies. This is my allergies. I'm telling you.
You know what? Y'all have really given me a lot to think about, because I'm really like, I think, you know what? I think for me, I think about things logistically all the time. Like, since I've been on this earth, my earliest thought even was very sitting in front of the TV, 8 years old. I will never forget the Empire commercial came on. The people who do carpet, right? 5, 8, 8, 2, 300 Empire. Okay. Anyway, and I turned around and I told my mother, I said, they must really need business, because they got a commercial on TV. And she was like, what? The reason people, right, do commercials and stuff, right, is because they need. And I remember, I think my Jonas told me, like, because I asked, like, what are these, you know, why these people? And he said, it's called advertisement, you know, whatever. And people get business that way. So my mind, logistically, right, like, it was like, oh, they must really need business, because they're doing this commercial. And I do, in tough situations, that's how I think. I literally have to tell myself sometimes, like, okay, is this, like, I switch. Does that make sense? Like, if I start even getting emotional about it, like, I'll just I lean more toward the logistic side.
Yeah, and so I'm reacting immediately. Immediately, I'm like,
I'm crying.
So I'm crying. I probably need to call my best friend so she can talk me down and tell me how ridiculous I am, and then I'll respond, because I respond like that. Like, it just is what it is. So I probably, let me have a minute, because I
don't know, like, even in not to get too sentimental or anything, but even in death, I think about it logistically, because and I literally tell, like, in my brain literally tells myself, this is a part of life, and this is, you know, God has control, so this is what happened, and that's what happened. Like, and then that, like, that's literally like the box I put in. I'm like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that sounds like that would be a great ability to use. Can you give me some of that?
Right. And then, but see, you know what? It actually, to me, I feel like it's a good thing, but then to a lot of people who may be more sensitive, it's not necessarily a good thing, because then I'm being too, you know, methodical or mechanical about stuff. And
well, as you know, we're related, so we've lost some of the same people. And I did not have that response. Let me just tell you. Because you pick me up off the floor. That's it. Yep. And then I'm gonna get it together eventually, but I gotta fall on the floor first.
Absolutely.
It's a part of the process.
I gotta react. My sister called me, because my dad, what I realized is I got my emotions from my dad. He is emo came exactly. And so my uncle died suddenly last year. And he was my favorite. I told him he was my favorite Gaynor. I said, you know, you my favorite. He laughed. I'm like, I'm serious. You really? So my dad called me, but I had my phone ringer off, which is probably good because that probably would not have been a good reaction. So anyway, my sister calls me and tells me, and I scream. I'm screaming, calm down, No. Have you met me? Calm down. No.
So my father was in the hospital some years back, and he had a heart attack, right? Mm-hmm. And I lived in another state at the time, and I couldn't get to him right away. So my stepmom called and was like, I'm gonna tell you what's happening, but calm down. So it was so crazy because I actually was okay with it, as okay as I could be with it. But it was so funny because my whole entire family, they were calling me like, Quita, we know how you are about your dad. You okay? Mm-hmm. Everybody's calling me like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, my dad is the one that's in the hospital. Y'all calling to check on me, but everybody knows, they know I'm gonna fall on the floor. It's part of the process. And I did fall on the floor. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely fell on the floor, but I was already up off the floor by the time I got the phone calls.
Yeah. And I just needed that. I was happy she called me. I'm screaming. Let me, and then I could call my dad. But me screaming on the phone with him, it wouldn't have been good. That wouldn't have been helpful.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I'm the person that be like, okay, I'm on you screaming, she screaming. Okay.
So what are we gonna do about it now? The next step in the process is we need to do this.
So I'll
then we're gonna do
I'll
this.
call these 3 people, and then you do this, and then
I can't do none. Not in the moment, in the initial shock of it. I can't do none of that. I'm working on it, but we're not there yet. God ain't not working on me yet.
But I feel like all this spiritual talk is a Sunday. But no, I can be honest and say, I feel like the reason I am that way is because, y'all know I have a little connection to the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. I do. And and so I feel like I understand it differently. Yeah. That's why I process it differently, because even, with the death of my sisters, I saw their literal body spirits before they died. You know what I'm saying? I saw them go, yo, I'm good. I'm gonna check you on the other side. You know what I'm saying? So when it happened, I was sad, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I didn't fall on the floor. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it was just a different vibe.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And so I don't know. I think I've been blessed that way, because I used to think it was a curse. And then my godmama told me.
No, it is a blessing. I think so. My mom died 7 years ago. And I think my challenge now is trying to connect with that spiritual side, because I know she's not coming back, but that physical side, it's still hard for me that I can't hear her voice and I can't touch her and I can't. And I understand that I need to make that switch, but that's the challenge for me, because the truth is, this is the rest of my life. So I'm still figuring it out. But so I think that is a blessing, because, it's necessary to be able to continue those relationships when we're still on this earth, because there's so much more to the world, to what's going on, than what we see. And that's also what I have to remind myself of too. What you see ain't necessarily reality. There is this whole spiritual world. And if being able to connect to that more, I think will give us all a better sense of peace, of calm. We could just deal with life's challenges a lot better, because we would know that there's just so many more pieces to the puzzle that we don't know. And this is not necessarily the end result of what I think it is. Yeah.
I'm but you know what? That brings up one more question. So when I had this conversation with my best friend, Marianne, she said, what does, if that's the case, right? You connect and everything. She was like, does that mean reincarnation is real? Because certain energies, right? Because we're all energy, comes in different forms, right? The butterflies and you know what I'm saying? And different things. Yeah. So I'm like, that's a good question. Because full circle goes back to the religion question, right? Is that a thing? And I'm like, I don't know. All I know is this is what's happening. You know what I'm saying? I gotta take it as it comes. So now I'm going to ask you rapid fire question.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Are you in the hot seat now, Dr.
You're in the hot seat now.
You ready for this?
We may cut some of this out. Or not. We may cut some out. We may not. But okay. Have you ever held back a well-deserved compliment or congratulations because you were jealous?
Ooh. Not that I can remember. I think that I'm so big on appreciation that I try to make sure I give that to people. So I'm not saying I haven't, but I can't think of it. I know that I try really to be very intentional about that because it's important to me. So I'm going to say no, I can't think of it.
All right. Have you ever done something because of peer pressure that you're ashamed of?
Oh. No, I don't think so. No, that I'm ashamed of? No,
that you're ashamed
but I mean, no.
No? Okay. All right. Would you report a family member to the police if you knew they committed a serious crime?
Maybe. I think it depends on what it is.
Well, it says serious.
Yeah.
I'm with her. It depends on what the crime is.
It probably depends on who it is, but I'm not against that, I'm not against it at all.
All right. Have you ever flirted with a policeman to get out of paying a ticket?
I've been very friendly, just put my charm on it.
I love it. Oh my God. Okay. And have you ever closed the door of an elevator knowing that a stranger is hurrying to catch it?
Yes. Especially with COVID. I don't know what's going on. I'm good. Bye. Sorry. Yes.
Oh, Lord. Well, I thank you so much for coming on, and let us know, tell the people where they can follow you and where they can find you.
Okay, so Facebook and Instagram, Peace of Mind Psychology, and then on Instagram also, Dr. Gaynor Speaks. So follow me. You'll be hearing more from me, motivational speaking, and just hopefully inspiration for your day. So thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. I hope that I'm invited back.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Oh, wait. There's an asterisk. You had a question.
I had a question?
Yes.
What was the
coaching?
We're going to discuss that another time. We're going to discuss that off camera.
But
I would like to shout out your curls that's popping for everybody to see. And I would like you to shout out your new product that you love so much.
Oh, okay. So Cantu, it's the coconut cream. So I am a product junkie. It's ridiculous, all the products I have. I'm like, you got to use what you have. However, nothing's been working in my hair. I went 20 minutes out the way using all my gas, and I just put this in before, and I love it. So Cantu,
So we have a lot of natural hair listeners out there, and I would like to take note because her curls is popping. That's the first thing I noticed.
And Eco Styler too. Eco Styler is in it as well. So
Eco Styler.
That big old $4, it's everything, huh?
The red top or the green top?
The green.
Okay.
It's amazing. Like, you spend all this money for products. This thing costs $4 and it's the best thing. Like, there's no
when
more.
My hair was loose natural also, Eco Styler was a winner. I use the red top though. I'm red top Eco Styler.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll get that after I finish this big old tub.
One is argan oil, one is olive oil.
Oh, okay.
Type of oil.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Again, I told y'all I'm a silk press girl. I try to do the curls when I can't get to the stylist.
Okay. I sweat too much to be wearing straight hair. I would look crazy. So
and you down there in that heat too. So you can't.
Yeah, and I'm working out. It's just not gonna work. Yeah. All of a sudden, I sleep at night, and my hair is just. Yeah.
I don't miss those days. Let me tell you, that's why we team locks over here all day.
Yeah, my best friend has sister locks. She loves it. It. It's always putting her hands in her hair. I'm like, girl, okay.
I told him, I was like, when my locks drop past my shoulders, y'all not gonna be able to tell me nothing. I'm not gonna act right. I'm telling you.
She's gonna have paparazzi following her around.
You already know. So just brace yourself.
So, all right. Well, you know what, Dr. Gaynor, thank you so much. We're gonna let you go. You have an excellent day, and again, we'll love to have you back if you're willing to come back.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.